Jean Tierney, Hollywood's tragic, timeless beauty ****. There are some faces in cinema that seem almost unreal. Some voices that seem like echoes from another world. And some stories, so breathtaking, so heartbreaking, that they linger in the soul long after the lights have gone out. This is the story of Jean Tierney. A woman whose beauty stunned directors. Whose beauty defined an era. And whose personal tragedy became one of Hollywood's most painful, hidden truths. Jean Elijah Tierney was born on November 20, 1920, in Brooklyn, New York. Her family was sophisticated, cultured, comfortable, a world away from the struggles of most Hollywood legends. She grew up surrounded by classical music, good books, and European vacations. Her parents encouraged talent, discipline, and beauty. But no one, not even Jean herself, knew that fate had already chosen her. Her face was dreamy. There was both innocence and mystery in her eyes. And her voice, soft and measured, seemed like poetry in human form. A school play changed everything. A Hollywood producer in the audience whispered that his life would be rewritten. That girl is from the screen. Jean first stepped into the spotlight on Broadway, not in Hollywood. She was nervous. Uncertain, yet, the moment he appeared, audiences couldn't take their eyes off him. Directors didn't just notice him, they chased him. But Jean wasn't ready to be managed by the studio. He wanted craft, not celebrity. So he trained, studied, practiced until he understood the art of acting, not just its glamour. Finally, Hollywood called, and this time, Jean. By her second film, critics were calling her the most beautiful woman in cinema. But beauty was only the beginning. Then came Laura. The film that would define her. A mysterious portrait of a woman whose image haunted a detective. And an entire generation of moviegoers. Jean didn't just play Laura. She embodied her, beautiful, mysterious, unforgettable. Hollywood had found its new goddess. Behind the glamour, Jean was struggling to breathe. She once said, "People look at me as if beauty protects you from pain. It doesn't." Hollywood demanded perfection. The perfect face, the perfect smile, the perfect life. She roamed the glitzy parties and lavish sets. Yet she often felt utterly alone. Jean wanted love. Normalcy. The warmth of family. But fame was a fragile refuge, and her world was about to collapse. In 1943, when Jean was pregnant with her first child, she met a fan in a Hollywood canteen. The woman had smallpox. But she hid it so that her beloved star could see her. Jean, unknowingly, hugged her. The revelation changed everything. Her daughter, Daria, was born with severe disabilities. Blind, deaf, unable to speak. For Jean, it was a wound that would never heal. She blamed herself. She blamed fame. She blamed the world that claimed she was untouchable. A mother broken by grief. Depression consumed her. Insomnia consumed her life. And the studios, instead of helping her, pushed her harder. Finally, Jean was hospitalized. She suffered a breakdown. She endured electroshock therapy. A brutal treatment that left invisible scars. But Jean wasn't just a beautiful woman. She was a fighter. Slowly, painfully, bravely. She rebuilt her life. She found love again. Her second marriage gave her the peace she had always sought. She lived quietly, far from Hollywood, focused on healing and the parts of herself she had once lost. Her memoir, Self-Portrait, revealed the truth the world had never known. The truth of a woman who looked like perfection, but lived with overwhelming sadness. Jean Tierney taught Hollywood a lesson. That even a goddess can bleed. She died in 1991. But her legacy lives on. Not because she was beautiful, but because she was honest. Jean Tierney is remembered for Laura's haunting face, the intensity of Leave It to Heaven. But in the glow of fame, Jean Tierney's life began to be swept up in a storm she never expected. Success brought praise, but it also brought pressure, the pressure to be flawless, to be perfect, to be radiant no matter how she felt inside. By the mid-1940s, Jean was not just a star, she had become an icon. A woman whose face was considered one of the most beautiful in the history of cinema. But beauty, as Jean learned the hard way, could not protect her from tragedy. In 1943, at the height of her career, Jean became pregnant with her first child. She was filled with joy, the joy of becoming a mother, the joy of creating a life beyond the silver screen. But during a USO performance, a devoted fan who had escaped her quarantine approached Jean, eager for her autograph despite having rubella. Jean contracted the disease during her pregnancy. Her daughter, Daria, was born with severe disabilities, nearly blind, deaf, and requiring lifelong care. The news devastated Jean. Her heart was broken, and with it, a piece of her soul. This moment changed her life forever. Still, Jean continued to act, smiling for the camera, signing autographs. But deep down, she carried a burden that no award could erase. "People think I've lived a glamorous life," she once wrote. "But they've never seen the nights I cry alone." The pressures of Hollywood, her child's secret heartbreak, and her personal struggles slowly pushed her toward a darkness she could no longer hide. Jean began to experience deep depression, panic, and emotional exhaustion. At a time when mental health was taboo, she felt completely alone. In the early 1950s, Jean Tierney made one of the most courageous decisions of her life. She moved away from Hollywood to seek treatment. She was admitted to various hospitals, undergoing therapies that were harsh and unforgiving by modern standards. Yet she fought on. She fought because she wanted to be there for her daughter, for her family, for herself. Hollywood had lost a star. But Jean had found something more precious, her humanity. Eventually, with time, care, and resilience, she slowly rebuilt her life. Not as a goddess. Not as a flawless screen beauty. But as a woman learning to breathe again. Towards the end of her life, Jean found peace. She remarried, lived quietly in Houston, and became an author, publishing a powerful autobiography that reveals the truth behind her glamorous image. She lived not as the iconic face of Laura or the haunting beauty of Leave Her to Heaven, but as Jean Tierney, a survivor, a mother, a woman who endured unimaginable heartbreak and still found love, hope, and a way to live. When Jean died in 1991, the world lost one of its most captivating stars. But her legacy, her beauty, her talent, and above all, her courage still shines brighter than ever. Because Jean Tierney wasn't just a Hollywood legend. He was a reminder that even the brightest stars have shadows. And sometimes, their greatest strength is learning to rise from the darkness.